Thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Natalie, and today Anne and I will go through Process Scheduler and how you can quick start the implementation to schedule your critical Sage 300 business processes to run automatically and unattended. Process Scheduler lets you start Sage 300 recurring processes without operations staff having to start them. It helps with your system integrity. You can have the confidence that your data is being checked on a regular basis. Your data security can be enhanced by automating backups through Sage 300 DB dump utility. You can automatically run de-end, post batches, and run custom processes overnight without having to log on to Sage 300 and outside of business hours. And by running these critical processes outside business hours, you avoid performance degradation. In addition, as we'll show you in this presentation, Process Scheduler is easy to learn and use. So we will first look at a detailed example to set up Process Scheduler for Sage 300 processes across multiple companies. We will then go through examples of Process Scheduler working with other ORCID modules like Report Runner, Info Explorer, and Extender to manage exceptions and automate some processes in a more advanced manner. As we discussed in a recent blog, the average Sage 300 site has 8 entities because Sage 300 offers many advantages for companies running multiple entities within one database or across multiple databases. But when finance managers who work with multiple databases use the system, they often need to log on to many companies just to perform regular tasks such as posting batches, opening and closing fiscal periods. They also need more visibility across the various companies. With Process Scheduler, it lets you perform such tasks from a single company, which reduces the number of clicks and improves your efficiency. And in addition, you can automate it to run it outside of business hours. So most of the examples that we will look at today is how to configure Process Scheduler across multiple companies. And we will start with 3 common usage of Process Scheduler across multiple companies to automate the end and post the related system batches, run data integrity, and open and close fiscal period across 3 companies. We'll install, activate, and configure Process Scheduler in one company to work across those 3 companies. And then we'll configure Windows Task Scheduler to run that schedule on a particular schedule and unattended. And then we'll look at 2 other examples, one to open fiscal period and one to run data integrity. So for that first presentation, I will switch off to a 20-minute video going through all the steps to get started with Process Scheduler.
In this Process Scheduler Quick Start video, we're going to download, install, and activate Process Scheduler. We're then going to check our Process Scheduler license, and then do the configuration we need to set up Process Scheduler. We're going to configure the Process Scheduler options, the Process Scheduler companies, and the email messages that we're going to use in our schedules. We're then going to create a day-end schedule, and the day-end schedule is also going to post the batches that result from the day-end. It's going to run across multiple companies. So per company, we're going to do a day-end and post batches. And once we've tested that schedule, we'll go ahead and configure the Windows Task Scheduler to run that schedule. To download Process Scheduler, you go to orchid.systems, log in, and then go to the product downloads. Select the version you want, and then download Process Scheduler. And once downloaded, you can run the install shield. and then connect to the company where you're going to activate Process Scheduler. This company must be the company where you're going to store all your schedules. Although you can run a schedule across multiple companies, you activate in one company only, and this is the company where the schedules are saved and the logs are saved. And having activated, you go to the Process Scheduler options, and you can check your license. You could enter your serial number here and activation code if you had installed for 30 days initially. The first setup you need to do is in Process Scheduler options. On the Processing tab, you fill in the credentials for the user to read the schedules. In our case, we're using admin and the admin's password. And then you store the company or select the company where the schedules are going to be stored. In our case now, Sample Company Limited. And I'm going to get a warning because I'm switching my active from my previous database that I was using. On the Email tab, you fill in your email server details, and this enables Process Scheduler to be able to send emails when it runs. Test your email settings. And save your options. In Process Scheduler companies, you need to specify a user ID and password for all those companies that you're going to write schedules for. So I'm going to have schedules for O11 and for Orc Ltd. And for the existing company, Sam Ltd. And the final setup I'm going to do are 2 email messages, one when the schedule is run, and one when there's been an error in the schedule. You can use these other variables depending on your schedule, and you can have tailored ones depending on your schedule. And to save time, I'm just going to copy and paste the email body from the schedule ran email. Using the Process Scheduler visual process flow for setting up Process Scheduler, we have activated Process Scheduler in SAM Ltd. We are using admin as the user for Process Scheduler and as the user for all the other target companies for our schedules. So our security has been set up. We set up SAM Ltd in the Process Scheduler setup on the Processing tab. We configured our email server on the Email tab, and we've created the email templates that we want to use. We've also entered the user ID and password to be used in the companies that we're going to create schedules for. So now we need to go ahead and create our schedules. The first schedule we're going to create is the one for day ends and for posting the batches. And we always want to send an email to alert us when the schedule has run. And the message ID we're going to do is the schedule ran. Our first step is going to work in company O11. And using the Detail tab, our first step is going to be to run an IC day end in O11 and to log any errors in this folder. If there's an error, we want to go to step 10. And we want to send an email saying that there has been an error. If it's successful, we want to go to step 5. We won't need to send an email, and step 5 will be posting the batches in O11. So all system batches are the batches that result from the day end. If there's an error in this, we want to go to step 15 and send an email that there has been an error. If there's not an error, we still want to go to step 15 and do the same for the next company. So step 10, run an IC day end. And we can use the same log file. If there's an error in this, we're going to go to step 20 and send the email that there's been an error. Otherwise, we're going to go to step 15, which will be to post. If this is an error, we're going to go to step 20 and send the schedule error email. If it's successful, we're still going to go to step 20, which is going to be to run for the third company. And we're going to run an IC day end for SAM Ltd. Use the same log path. If there's an error, we're going to stop and send an email. If it's successful, we're going to go to step 25, which is going to be posting the system batches in SAM Ltd. If there's an error, we're going to send an email. But there's no next step. Your schedule can have multiple paths depending on the success or the failure steps. And 0 terminates the schedule. You can test your schedule by clicking Run here. And this tests both your setup is correct in Options on the Processing tab, that the companies are defined in Process Scheduler companies, and will run through all the actions that you've set up. When running from the schedule screen, the status or the log will be displayed on the screen once the processing has finished. And you can review the log here. And clicking on the audit log shows you all the actions that have been taken for this schedule. Ran the IC day end in 011, posted all system batches, IC day end in Orc Ltd, posted all system batches, and the IC day end in SAM Ltd, and posted all system batches. And then it sent the email. The status will give you whether it was successful or failure, and depending the type of action, if there are errors, you can drill into the log if that action creates a log. And the final thing is to set up the schedule in your Windows Task Scheduler. In your Windows Task Scheduler, create a task. Specify that you want to run this whether the user is logged in or not. And you will need to specify the network user to use to start the task. The action is going to be to start a program to run from your Sage programs directory. OZ is the 2-letter code for Process Scheduler. You select the Oz Integrity Check program and the parameter to pass in the schedule ID. The trigger is when you want to run, so we're going to run daily at 10 p.m. And this is the network user to use. And this network user needs the read-write access to the Sage shared data directory so it can run the programs. And we can run this now, or it will schedule at 10 p.m. every night. We have just seen how to download, install, and activate Process Scheduler, how to check the license. We've run through the configuration of Process Scheduler options, Process Scheduler companies, and the email messages needed. And then we created a day-end schedule to run across 3 companies that ran the day-end and posted the resulting day-end batches. And then we saw how to test the schedule and how to configure the Windows Task Scheduler to schedule this on a set schedule. We're now going to have a look at another schedule to open fiscal periods per module. The schedule is still going to run across multiple companies, and it's going to open multiple modules periods for AR and OE in all our 3 companies. We're going to create a new schedule. Called Open AR OE. Again, we're always going to send an email when it runs. And the message ID is going to be our schedule ran. Step number 1, company 011. And this time we're going to choose a level 3 action to open the next closed period. And looking at our detail, with this action, we can either say for all modules or we can include an individual module. So we're going to do accounts receivable, and depending whether it's successful or not, we're going to try and open OE. If it's not successful, we're going to give the normal error message that an error occurred. Step number 5. Open the next closed period for 011, and this one's for OE. Send an email if there's an error, and so on until we have the open next closed period for Orc Limited, for AR and order entry, and for SAM Limited for AR and order entry. And to test if it runs, we can see all the actions and look at the audit log. It's run for 011, Orc Limited, SAM Ltd, and all the steps were successful. And now you would schedule this schedule using the Windows Task Scheduler maybe on the 25th or the 28th of every month to open for the future months. We have just seen our open OEAR schedule, how it can run across multiple companies and open the next fiscal period for multiple modules. And the next schedule we're going to have a look at is to run data integrity checks across multiple companies, and after running the integrity check we're going to run another action to clear the old logs, because data integrity checks which are over 90 days old are probably no longer relevant. So the first step per company is going to run the data integrity check for all the modules, and the second step per company is going to clear the data integrity logs which are over 90 days old. This new schedule we're going to call Data Integrity Check and Clear. We're always going to send an email. Step number 1, in our company 011, we're going to check all modules integrity. Select to fix errors. Create our log path. And choose the option to send the full log of all the integrity errors. Whether there's errors or not, we're going to go to the next step to clear. After adding our 3 companies, the check modules integrity and then the clear the integrity logs after 90 days, when those logs are over the 90 days old, we can add the schedule and give it a test run. Check integrity and clear data integrity logs are level 1 process scheduler actions. And there's 2 different actions, one to check an individual module's integrity and one to check all the currently active modules within the company, which is what we're doing here. Normally the schedule would be scheduled overnight, so I'm just going to speed up the process as it is doing a data integrity check across all modules in these 3 companies. When being run from the process scheduler screen, the log is displayed, or if it's too large, you can open up the log and you can see the full history of that's being run. But it's also being audited and is in the detail log. So we can see the actions that ran per company, and we can drill into the last process scheduler error log, in this case for tax services. But all the integrity logs would have been saved in the appropriate directories. And were there any logs older than 90 days old, they would have been cleared from the directory. With data integrity checks, you can opt to only send emails if there's errors. And then on the individual tasks, you can say send an email, but only if there's a change in the number of errors. So if there's always one error in tax services, you won't get an email the second time the integrity check is run. And if it doesn't change from that one error, then you won't receive any emails again. We have seen how you can set up a data integrity check schedule, which will check all the modules integrity within a company and then clear down the logs of the old integrity checks afterwards. And we've tested that schedule too.
Thank you, Anne. So in the last 20 minutes, we've seen how we can install and configure Process Scheduler to automate regular Sage 300 tasks across 3 companies. And it helps the manager receive some alerts, in particular when the process fails or when there is an exception. So Process Scheduler supports management by exception very well. It's also a cost-effective, quick-win way to kickstart the process improvement journey. As you've seen, there are a lot of audit logs as to what is being run, so it helps keep your auditors happy. Other examples of using Process Scheduler that are particularly relevant to working with multiple companies include, for example, running the GL consolidation processes. In the next part of the presentation, we're now going to look at how to use Process Scheduler with other ORCID modules to automate report distribution and custom processes in Sage 300. There are a lot of details on this topic on the ORCID website on the Process Scheduler page. And a reminder that this is not meant to be a detailed training video on using Report Runner or Info Explorer or Extender. Its focus is on using Process Scheduler with those modules. So we'll look at how to distribute Info Explorer cubes, scheduling crystal reports configured in Report Runner, scheduling GL financial reports, also configured in Report Runner, and running extender scripts for exception management, alerts and notifications to progress a workflow and to automate further some Sage 300 tasks. When you use Process Scheduler with Info Explorer to distribute the cubes, Info Explorer being our business intelligence tool, which lets you do some analysis like a Power Pivot table on your Sage 300 data, you can automate the distribution and automatically send a refresh cube to team members on a regular basis. You can configure it to use their own parameters, so your data is secure. The users only see their own data. They can't refresh it. They access their cube that has been refreshed outside of business hours. They can also access it without logging on to Sage 300 if they're out of the office, on the road, at home, and have Info Explorer on their machine. They receive the cube in their emails and they can get their updated data. When you run Process Scheduler with Report Runner, and we're going to start by looking at an example with Crystal Reports and Process Scheduler Level 1. You configure everything in each company where you want to run reports in. You work out what reports, what report parameters you're going to pass, who's going to receive the email, and how often it's run, daily, weekly, monthly. And then in a single company, you're going to configure your schedule, and the schedule is going to run and refresh all the reports when they're due to be run. And the details of how to set up Report Runner is in the Report Runner training video. Next, we're also going to look at configuring Process Scheduler with GL financial reports. Similarly, you configure your GL report options in Report Runner, and then you can do one schedule that will connect to each different company and run the different report groups that you've configured. With Process Scheduler, you can then choose which financial year and period you're going to run it for. The next financial year and period for budgets, the previous period, the current period for your actual. Set up where you save your files and who you're going to email. And then you can schedule all that with Windows Scheduler so that it's run out of hours. So for the next second presentation, I'm going to switch to our Report Runner video, which is about just under 9 minutes.
Process Scheduler allows you to schedule repetitive tasks in Sage 300, but when used in conjunction with Report Runner and Info Explorer, it allows you to automate Crystal reports. The parameters for the Crystal reports are stored in Report Runner, and then these reports can be scheduled by Process Scheduler. These could be either your Sage 300 Crystal reports or your custom Sage 300 Crystal reports. When run through Process Scheduler, they are saved and emailed as per the configuration. You can also automate the running of GL-FR reports. The parameters are stored in Report Runner, and Process Scheduler runs the FR view on all the tabs in the worksheet. The worksheet is then saved, and the Excel workbook is emailed to the configured recipients. And when scheduling the refreshing of Info Explorer cubes, the Info Explorer cubes are refreshed and emailed to the appropriate recipient. We're going to have a look at the steps of using Process Scheduler with Report Runner and Info Explorer. We're going to briefly have a look at the Report Runner configuration for Crystal reports and financial reports in the two companies that we're going to schedule the reports for. We're going to check that you need to configure the email in Report Runner for sending emails. You need to configure the Crystal reports, and you need to configure the financial reports. And we also need to configure the Info Explorer cubes for the companies that we want the cubes to run in. And then we're going to create a custom schedule in Process Scheduler, and it's going to have 3 steps per company. The first step is going to be a level 1 action to run an information manager report, which will pick up and run all the crystal reports that are scheduled to be run by now. A level 3 action, run financial report group, which will run the nominated financial report group and email and save as requested. And a level 1 action to refresh the Info Explorer cube. And we're going to have a look at this running in multiple companies, Orc Ltd and O11. Then we're going to test the schedule and schedule using the Windows Task Scheduler. In Orc Ltd, in IM Setup, in the options, we have configured the email for any emails being sent by Report Runner. And we've created any email messages that we want to send with our reports. And then for our Crystal Report Runner, we have added all the Crystal reports we want to our desktop, set the parameters for these reports, and specified those ones that we want to schedule, and schedule when they're next going to be run. Similarly, for our financial reports, we can group them into groups. For example, Department 100 has these 3 reports, and we can add as many financial reports as we need, and we schedule these by report group. Similarly, in O11, we have configured our email, configured our email messages to be sent with our reports, and in our analytical reports, we have scheduled any reports that we want to run and specified the schedule. And in our financial reports, we've created our groups of financial reports and attached those reports that belong to that group, and that's what we're going to schedule in Process Scheduler, a report group. In Process Scheduler, we have configured which company our schedules are stored in, and in Companies, we have configured which companies we want to run schedules for, so in our case, O11 and Orc Ltd. Configured any email messages that we might use in these schedules. And then gone ahead to create our schedule. So this schedule is not going to send any email about the schedule running because there will be emails going from each of the individual steps. So in Orc Limited, we're going to run an Information Manager report. And this will run all the crystal reports that have been scheduled to be run by now. And then in Orc Limited, we're going to run a financial report group. And we select the report group. So we're going to run all the reports in Department 100, passing in the current fiscal year and period, saying the format that we want this to be exported in, and where the file must be stored, and who it must be emailed to. The third step is going to run this particular Info Explorer cube. And if needs be, it can pass in parameters and the email message template to go with the cube. And then we have 2 additional steps to run the crystal reports in O11 and the financial reports in O11. And to test the schedule, we can run it now. And just speeding up the process a little. And when run from the schedule screen, we get a summary of the actions that were taken and any error messages. But we also get those details on the audit log. They were all successful. And the Crystal reports emailed from Orc Ltd were attached and emailed. The financial reports from Orc Ltd were attached and emailed. The Info Explorer Cube was attached and emailed. And similarly for those Crystal reports in O11 and financial reports in O11. And if we want to schedule that, we can go to our Windows Task Scheduler, create a task, say it's going to run whether the user is logged in or not. On the triggers, we're going to run this daily at 11 p.m. And the actions we're going to do is to run our Oz integrity check and pass in the schedule name. And when we save, we need to specify the network user ID and password for this task to run. And here's our report. And after 11 p.m. each day, the status will be updated when this task is run.
Thanks, Anne, for this demo of all the key steps to set up Process Scheduler and Report Runner. So in particular with Financial Report Runner across multi-companies, even if you don't schedule it and attend it, using Process Scheduler in conjunction with Financial Report Runner lets you in one click run all the reports that you need at month end or on a regular basis. In the third part of this presentation, we're going to switch to Process Scheduler and Extender. You've probably noticed in the last few months, when discussing automating and process improvement in Sage 300, it's hard for us to avoid using Extender. In this presentation, we'll focus on using Process Scheduler Level 1 to run Extender scripts. You can automate your Sage 300 tasks without user intervention, in particular to run across multiple companies in a single click. For example, you can run an Extender script that will run the GL revaluation or the AP and AR revaluation across multiple companies without having to log on to each company. So you would set up, configure how you want to run your revaluation in a custom Extender table, and then run the script across all the different company. Just receive an email notification if there was an issue in a particular company. Similarly, you can have scripts that will run reports that need some pre-processing, such as specific tech audit logger and funds availability report. They're not just a standard report, they're a report that require a Sage process to be run beforehand, and Extender script can automate that process. You can also use Extender scripts and Process Scheduler for time-based alerts and notifications, such as reminder of appointments scheduled in Service Manager, or sending reminders of expired subscriptions, which is an example we use internally, where we read details of customers stored in Sage 300, as well as their subscription details to our modules saved in CRM, and then we email the AR contact. You can also use Extender for exception management, particularly for the finance team across companies. For example, to run AP and AR aging, or to send a notification of unposted batches in various modules, as well as to run inter-entity error notification. And these are the examples that we're going to look at in more detail in this presentation. To set up Process Scheduler to run Extender scripts, you need to configure Extender in all the companies. The email setting, as in many cases, you're going to be emailing somebody. Then you would import the Extender module, which will include the script, the message templates that go with the emails, and optionally custom tables to store some configuration parameters. While we are not looking at the detailed extender setup required or training on doing these scripts in this presentation, there are a few specific aspects of the scripts that you need to take into consideration when you're designing it to be run in Process Scheduler. You can't really expect user input when running it through Process Scheduler, as it's going to be unattended. However, you can configure parameters in Process Scheduler, and there is a way to retrieve those parameters in the script, which is documented in the knowledge base. Similarly, you wouldn't show message box in the screen, as they may hang when you're running that unattended. So you would save the detailed logs that you need in a log file, generally in the shared data, and return errors if there are any, or a zero error count, so that it can be displayed in the Process Scheduler logs. And then you configure Process Scheduler, as with all the other scenarios we've looked at, only in the main company, to run the scripts that you need in whichever companies you need. So in our example, we're going to look at running AR aging and an inter-entity audit log notification in 2 companies, Orc Ltd and O11. And for this part of the presentation, I'm going to now switch to the third and final video, which is also about 8 or 9 minutes long.
Process Scheduler can be used to automate predefined or custom actions when used with Extender. For example, you can automate Sage 300 tasks across companies with no user intervention, for example, day ends or posting batches, or GL consolidations, exports and imports. So you could have a schedule that runs the GL consolidation export out of the 5 different subsidiary companies and then logs into the GL consolidated company and runs the 5 imports. This can be scheduled using the Windows Task Scheduler, or if it's not appropriate to schedule them on the 1st of the month or the 2nd of the month, you can just go to the schedule and click Run Now. But in conjunction with Extender, you can schedule custom scripts or custom alerts and notifications and additional processes and automations. For example, overdue customers, stock shortages, AP and AR aging, unposted batches. At month end, you might want to know which companies have unposted batches. You can schedule a script to alert you which inter-entity companies have entries in their audit logs. And you can, even with a custom table, schedule GL revaluations by storing the way you run your revaluations in the custom table, and then by populating the GL revaluation with your preferences and running company by company. And these extender scripts or automated alerts and notifications can either be scheduled using the Windows Task Scheduler or by clicking Run Now on the schedule if you don't have a predetermined date and time that you need to run them. We're going to have a look at Process Scheduler for some custom actions. And we're going to run some custom actions in both Orc Limited and O11. And for this, we need to configure Extender in Orc Limited and O11, configure the emails so we can send emails of the notifications. We need to load the email templates, and we need to load the scripts that are the alerts and notifications. And if the scripts need configuration, entries in the table, then we need to do that as well. And once Extender is loaded and configured in all the companies that we want to run these notifications and alerts, then you go to your Process Scheduler company and you create a schedule. The action is to run an Extender script. You select the company and the script that you want to run, and then you have as many rows for as many companies and scripts that you want to run. And we're going to go ahead and create such a schedule, test the schedule, and then schedule it using the Windows Task Scheduler. In Orc Ltd, the first company where we're going to schedule some notifications and alerts, we need to do our Extender configuration. We need to configure our email server so we can send emails with the notifications. We need to create the message templates to be sent with our notifications. And we need to import the module or the scripts. And we're going to be scheduling two scripts. One, a script which alerts us if there are any entries in any of the IET audit trails, and a second script to run the AR aging and send us a list of all those customers who have aging buckets in the buckets that we configure for. And we're also going to run those same scripts in O11. So in our extender setup, we've configured our email. In our message templates, we have defined the messages that we want to go with the AR aging and with the IE audit logs. And we've imported the scripts for the IET audit entry, audit log entries, and the AR aging. And finally, in SAM Ltd, the company where we store our schedules, we have configured the processing tab to say that we're storing our schedules in SAM Ltd, the email tab to get any emails from Process Scheduler. In our companies, we have configured O11 as well as Orc Limited. And then we go ahead and create our schedule. So for our daily notification schedule, we're only going to send an email, the notification error email, if any errors occur in the schedule. And then we've got 4 steps in our schedule. The first one running in Orc Limited. It runs an extender script. This is a level 1 action. It sends an email on error, and it runs in the company Orc Ltd. And the script that it runs is a finder into Orc Ltd scripts. So the script was loaded in Orc Ltd, and then we fill in any parameters that we may need. In this case, the message ID to use and the email, where the email is to be sent. And then, still in Orc Ltd, we're running an extender script, and this time we're running the AR aging script with the AR aging parameters, which allows you to select only those customers which have a balance in buckets 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could do a script just for buckets 4, for example. And then the IET audit listing from O11, and the AR aging from O11. So if we want to run this script now, we can click the Run button, and it will go ahead, log into each of those companies, and execute the script, one after the other. And because I'm running from the schedule screen, I will see a summary of any errors that have happened or what was executed. No errors happened. And I also get those details in the audit log. So I've run it a few times, but down towards the bottom, you will see the last run that we've just done. Orc Limited, the IET audit error log, the status, which was okay, a drill down to the error log if your script creates an error log, and a copy of the email that was sent. And then Orc Limited running the AR aging, status okay, drill down to the error log, and a copy of the AR aging email sent. And then same again in O11, the IET audit inquiry, the IET audit log email, and in O11, the AR aging. And if we want to schedule that daily notifications, we would go to our task scheduler create a task, run whether the user is logged in or not, the triggers, when does it run. We're going to run it every day at 9 p.m. The actions, it runs the exe called Oz Integrity Check in your OZ directory, OZ68A in this case, and passes in the schedule ID. And when I save this, I need to specify the network user under which this is going to run. And then this schedule will be scheduled at 9 p.m. every night, and the status will be updated once it's run.
Thank you, Anne, for this detailed presentation on running process scheduler and extender script across multiple companies. You can find more details on extender in on the website, in the training videos, and in the knowledge base. And generally speaking, for more details on process scheduler, you can refer to our website, the process scheduler page, and you'll see details of the actions that are available and some example usage. So thanks for your time. We now have 10 minutes left for questions. As you are all in listen-only mode, please put your questions in the questions box. And while you're thinking of your questions, I will ask Anne to show us another list of the actions that are available in the process scheduler.
Thanks, Natalie. So I'm hoping you can now see my Sage 300 screen. Process scheduler has a number of predefined actions. So apart from the custom actions that you can have, we have a number of predefined actions. For example, the level 1 actions are checking all the modules integrity or an individual modules integrity, dumping a database, refreshing cubes and reports in Report Runner, that's Crystal reports, running a schedule, clearing logs, check disk space, and run an extender script. So that's all level 1. Level 2, and it's just a license issue and a cost issue. Level 2 allows you to do all that's in level 1, plus the day end, whether it's an IC day end or if you only have PO day end, plus all the posting of different types of batches. And then level 3, you can load a database, copy a database, run an external program, GL consolidation, imports and exports, and run a financial report group. So that's your FR reporter that I showed you. You need Report Runner to store those parameters. And you can open periods and years and close the earliest open period and open the next close period. And that's the one I showed you as well earlier. So if your memory is not absolutely perfect, you can, and remember all those lists, you can go to our website, go to the process scheduler product page, scroll down, and you will see a list of the level 1 actions, level 2, and level 3 actions. So you can always double check here.
Thank you, Anne. Next question is, do we need Report Runner to use Process Scheduler to automate execution of Crystal reports? The answer is, well, the overall answer is yes, and we will show you in Report Runner how you configure, how you add your reports to the Sage 300 report and how you can configure the parameters. But there are some cases of reports in Sage 300 that actually require some pre-processing. And an example of that would be Pacific Tech Fund Availability Report. So to run that report is not just a Crystal report. There is actually a process that populates the temporary table, and then the report is run. So for such a report, you can actually automate that with an extender script that will call that process with the right parameters and then run the report. So you can use an extender script to run the report with the right parameters. But for standard reports, it's generally easier to use just Report Runner because it's designed around storing your parameters and running the same report with parameter 1 and then with parameter 2. So Process Scheduler itself cannot run the report. It can just it doesn't have a place to store the reports that you want to run. It's that is stored in Report Runner. So yes, you generally need both. So over to you, Anne, to show us a little bit more about Report Runner.
Okay, so Report Runner, we have Report Runner for Crystal reports and Report Runner for financial reports. In the Crystal report section, you can create as many groups as you want. For right-hand mouse button, add a section, so accounts payable, accounts receivable, so on. And then within a group, right-hand mouse button, and you add a report. And when you do that, you're browsing to find a Crystal report. And when it gets added to the desktop, if I edit this, as it's adding the report name to the desktop, it also opens up the report and gets all the parameters and fills the parameters in here. And then you can come and set these parameters. Whether or not they're a finder, the user's going to be prompted for this when it runs, or whether they're hidden and you just fill in the value. So in this case, my AP account sets, we always pass in yes for multi-currency, and we always enter the home currency as USD. So the user's not going to be prompted that, but to run this report, they're going to be asked for the from and to account set. So if I go print, it's going to say what are the from and to account set. So what you do for if you want to schedule this, because we can't have this popping up at the server at midnight, what we do is fill in the values that you want. So if you wanted to run from A to B, then you would go schedule and say what your schedule is. And so you'd say, yep, I'm going to run this daily, starting on Wednesday. This is where I'm going to save it. This is who I'm going to email it to. And when I could have gone run there. I could have gone run straight away and it would have run and emailed. But if I just go OK and save that schedule, then I will end up with an entry saying when my report must next be run and what the parameters are. And when Process Scheduler runs, it goes to the company and sees for all users, because this was me as user admin saving this, but Natalie could be coming in and having her own version of the reports with different parameters. Lots of users might have set up these reports to be run at different times, different parameters. Process Scheduler comes in here, looks for everything that's due to be run, and just prints it and emails it as it has been set up. So yes, Report Runner is needed to store the parameters, and Process Scheduler and who wants to run what and who wants to receive what. And then Process Scheduler just runs these and does whatever that has been stored to do. Similarly, for your financial reports, you can add a section or a group, and then within a group, you can add a report. And this time you're browsing to find your .xls, which is, your Crystal, your spreadsheet with your financial report in. So if I go ahead and edit it, this time Report Runner is storing how you run this FR report. And that is why when you schedule it using Process Scheduler, it's got all the parameters. This is, it's filtering segment 2 by 100 and so on and so forth. And that is why in Process Scheduler, you just choose the group, and it's going to run all of those in that group. And you set up an email address in Process Scheduler, and that's where it'll be emailed to and saved if you fill that in Process Scheduler. So that's the two menus in Report Runner, financial and Crystal reports. And you can run now. So that's not scheduled, but it would run one after the other. But to have it running at midnight after hours when it's not going to interrupt anyone or make anyone go slow, then you need Process Scheduler.
Thank you, Anne. I think we've got time for one more quick question. I know we're over by a couple of minutes, but probably worth answering that one. How does Process Scheduler need any LAN packs?
Oh, good question. So I'm just Process Scheduler. If I'll just log back into my configured company on this machine. Process Scheduler, when you're running from the Windows Task Scheduler, fires off a Sage session, and it logs into the Sage session using this user and this password. And it logs into this company to see what schedules, to see what the steps are, the actions to be run for this particular schedule. And then it's going to fire off a second session into the company that you've configured. So for example, we configured some for Orc Limited. So if this user is the same as the one as in options, then it's going to, because Sage allows you to use the same LAN pack, if it's the same user on the same machine connecting to multiple companies, you only consume one LAN pack. So if your user in options is the same as all the users that you have for all the companies, then it's only going to use one LAN pack while it's running. But if in your companies you've got different users or different to your options one and different per company, it's going to use at most 2 LAN packs. One to be reading what the schedule must do and to update the audit log in the schedule, and the second to open the company and do whatever actions you've told it to do. So either 1 or 2, but they're LAN packs. But you can run Process Scheduler. You just buy the module once, you activate it in whichever company you want to store your schedules, but then it can run schedules across multiple companies. So there's no LAN pack or multi-company license for Process Scheduler itself.
Thank you. Might as well show us one final question there from Faisal. Can we have a sample company with all ORCID modules activated? So the short answer is yes, it is available on our website in the product download area. So there is one lot of sample data per version of Sage 300, the most current one being version 2021.
So, and when you download this file and unzip it, you'll see there's actually 5 databases. So most of the modules are configured in Orc Ltd. But we have got some inter-entity transactions going into Orc Inc. 2, 3, 4. And we have got some different aspects of Extender activated in Orc Extender Workflow, ORC EWF. But when you download this file and you unzip it, there'll be a Word document in there which explains what all the databases are. And there's also a subdirectory which has all the demo scripts, which shows you how to demonstrate that particular module. So if I just go to my C drive here, so this ORCID folder here is what gets unzipped as part of the, all the dump files are in sample data. But we've got this folder demonstration scripts, and there's a Word document per module. If you open that up, it tells you which company you should be working in, which vendor you should use, or which customer you should use, or which item you should use, and how you should do your transactions to demonstrate that particular aspect of ORCID modules. And it tells you the company as well. So if I opened up notes in DML, it'll tell me that I should use Orc Limited, and then it just shows you, some setup issues you may have, and then just shows you the high level of the module, where to go, what to look for, and what notes you should see. So yep, we do have that.
Okay, thank you for your time and for attending. We will be sending a recording of the webinar in the next couple of days. Watch out for our newsletter that's going to come out on Thursday, and we'll see you in a few weeks for the March webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks
Bye.
for attending. Bye.